Court-martial bloopers part 10. Okay, this one involves a case that I had, and it was a funny that my client made. Although, honestly, I kind of had a heart attack and kind of threw up in my mouth a little bit just in the middle of it because you don't know how these things are going to come across. So I was defending a lieutenant colonel who was a DO. That's a doctor, but not an MD, whatever. He was accused of purportedly, and it was false, touching a patient, inappropriately pretending like it was for medical purposes, but it wasn't, that it was sexual. Okay, so we're defending that. They also threw in this kind of like baloney charge, as they often do, of this conduct unbecoming, because when he was saying goodbye to this patient, in the words of the client, he was giving her a bro hug, right? Just like whatever. So he opted to testify. He's up there testifying. And as is common in most of my cases, I had a military co-counsel. This gentleman was a major and he was an activated reservist and he was on like a 1-year mobilization. Fine attorney, but if anybody knows me, you know that if you work with me, there's probably going to be very little that you do on the record. Not to say that you don't contribute behind the scenes, you don't help me tactically, help me work through issues, help me, spot ideas for motions, etc. But generally speaking, on the record, you're just not going to do very much. So this case is being presided over by just a fantastic judge, just a fantastic jurist. I have the really high regard for him. And so he's on the stand, but he's also like, he's kind of I don't say curmudgeon, but like his demeanor on the bench is appropriately serious, right? And he's also a little bit old school, and the fact that he's not afraid to appropriately snipe at counsel if needed. He's not like part of this like new age of like just kind of coddling counsel, which I deeply appreciate also. And he's also ridiculously prepared. He's never been a judge who I've ever thought for a moment didn't read the pleadings or hadn't, gotten ready for court as they should as a professional. So my client's up there testifying, and I think that it was based upon a panel member question. Okay. So they wanted to know more about this hug, right? So the client had already explained during his direct examination that the reason that he even made that kind of physical contact with patients historically was because of some literature. I thought this was interesting, that it makes people less likely to allege that you've committed medical malpractice. Okay. So there was a panel member question sort of wanting to understand, because of course the lady had testified that it was like this, like this very inappropriate hug where he's like rubbing up against her or whatever. And she had some significant credibility issues, but the panel member wanted to kind of understand more about it. So, as you all know, if you've been watching the previous court-martial blooper, and specifically, I think it was 6, witnesses are allowed to come into the well of the courtroom, which is that space between like the where they sit in the witness box and where the members are observing them, right? That's the well of the courtroom. Attorneys move through there, witnesses walk through there, to go to the stand and to return, but generally speaking, don't hang out there. If there's a desire and a need, and it's going to be helpful to the trier of fact, they can step down from the witness stand and they can, do a demonstration, what have you. Sometimes it's being directed by them on cross-examination. Sometimes it's part of cross-examination. In this case, it was from a member question, right? So because in our system, the jury, they get to ask questions. So they're asking for this description of it. And so the questions come from the judge. So the client, as I had instructed him, was like looking at the judge to answer, to receive the question, and then looking back at the panel to deliver the answer. And my client's doing his best to try to describe verbally this hug once again, because it'd come up on direct, come up on cross, and now it's the member's question. And he's trying to describe it verbally. And at which point the judge says, Major so-and-so, you haven't contributed anything to this trial. Post. And so he has him, this major, come into the well of the courtroom and directs my client to like stand down and to do it. But before that happens, he had turned to the judge in reply and had said, Your Honor, do you want me to show? Do you want me to hug you? And I'm like, holy crab apple. Like just in that moment. And not skipping a beat, the judge is like, no, I do not. And that's when he's like, Major so-and-so, post. So my client gets down, does this like side kind of bro hug, and the panel was satisfied. He was later acquitted. Messy military lawyer.